welcome to The Explainer. Today, we're diving straight into a framework that completely flips how we look at world events, blending modern geopolitics with, well, extraterrestrial spirituality. We are looking at a worldview that the headlines you read every single day aren't just about nations competing for resources, but are actually frontline skirmishes in a literal cosmic war.
The source material we're unpacking is Ryuho Okawa's book, Zoroaster, How to Fight the Dark God of the Universe, recorded back in January 2021. We're going to focus heavily on the pivotal Chapter 9. According to this text, global events are part of a massive battle against an entity it calls the Dark God of the Universe. We're going to figure out exactly what that means, how the text identifies this enemy, and the incredibly unique, kind of sci-fi solution it proposes for humanity.
Now get this, the core thesis here is absolutely wild. Through the lens of this book, UFO disclosure isn't just about figuring out if aliens are real. It's framed as a literal spiritual weapon. It's positioned as the ultimate maneuver to shatter a deeply entrenched earthly mindset that's supposedly holding humanity back. So what exactly is this dangerous mindset? Let's break down the enemy.
All right, let's hit Section 1, Rule of the Dark God.
To really grasp this worldview, we first have to understand who or what the ultimate enemy actually is. It's not a single country or a politician. The text points the finger at scientific materialism. That's the belief that physical matter is the only reality. And the author asserts this isn't just some philosophical debate, it's an active, manipulative ideology. It's a tool deliberately used by this dark god to blind us to broader spiritual and extraterrestrial truths. Basically, by convincing people that only what they can see and touch is real, the dark god puts a hard ceiling on human consciousness.
So this sets up an epic cosmic showdown. On one side, you have the puppets of the dark god. These are systems built on totalitarianism, strict materialism, and the unwavering belief that science is omnipotent. On the other side, you've got the forces of light, championing spiritual awakening, extraterrestrial awareness, and the pursuit of cosmic truth. The author is essentially dropping every global movement into one of these two cosmic buckets.
Moving right along to Section 2, Earthly and Environmental Manipulation.
Okay, so the text brings this abstract philosophy right down to earth, making really specific claims about how this materialist agenda is playing out right now in modern environmental and geopolitical movements. The author looks at real-world figures and applies this cosmic filter to them. For example, it specifically mentions climate activist Greta Thunberg. Now, regardless of your personal stance on climate change, what's fascinating here is how this specific framework views her influence, retroactively applying a cosmic narrative to modern environmentalism.
Through Okawa's lens, mainstream environmental messaging gets framed radically differently. The text literally asserts that broadcasting climate alarmism is the work of the dark god. Why? Well, because, according to the author, it pushes the propaganda that science is omnipotent and hyper-focuses humanity purely on physical elements, like CO2 destroying the physical Earth, instead of spiritual salvation or cosmic realities. It's viewed as brainwashing to enforce that scientific materialism we just talked about. And it doesn't stop at environmentalism. The exact same logic is applied to global economics. Geopolitical power plays, specifically calling out China's economic expansion and initiatives like the Asian Infrastructure Investment Bank, are viewed through this same lens. They aren't just economic strategies, they're seen as physical manifestations of this materialist control system. So chasing purely material wealth and dominance is, in this framework, just a different tentacle of the same dark god.
Which brings us to Section 3, UFOs as the counter-strategy.
If materialism is the ultimate trap, if believing only in the physical world is the problem, then how do you break it? You have to introduce something that completely shatters that reality. And the book proposes an incredibly unique solution. The text actually cites former U.S. President Donald Trump's administration, specifically the military declassification of UFO videos, as a massive strategic turning point in this cosmic war.
The author insists this disclosure wasn't some random bureaucratic accident, it was a deliberate leak. The book even claims that America is actively receiving technological support from extraterrestrials to maintain a military edge against those materialist totalitarian regimes. This disclosure is designed to directly blow up the materialist narrative of the world.
But obviously, this is high stakes. The book points out that past leaders who attempted to expose this extraterrestrial reality faced severe threats. It suggests the forces of the dark god are so desperate to keep the illusion of a purely material world intact that historical attempts at UFO disclosure were met with extreme pushback, including the very real threat of assassination.
So here is the text's proposed playbook for humanity's victory. It's a three-step process to break the dark god's rule.
Step 1. Society has to broadly acknowledge the existence of UFOs. Step 2. Humanity must accept the reality of an extraterrestrial presence. And Step 3, which is absolutely crucial, we must realize that our current physical science cannot explain everything. Once you hit Step 3, boom, scientific materialism crumbles.
And that leads us perfectly into Section 4, dismantling scientific materialism. This brings us to the ultimate goal outlined in Chapter 9. It's not about winning a local election or even conquering a country. It is about the complete collapse of a worldview. The author emphasizes that fighting political figures or nations physically just doesn't cut it. If you defeat a dictator but the people still believe only in material power, you haven't actually won anything. A new dictator will just pop up because the underlying ideology, the actual power source of the Dark God, is still there.
Think about the difference here. The physical war is about defeating specific leaders or nations, but the spiritual war is about using undeniable paradigm-shifting events like massive UFO disclosure to completely collapse that materialistic ideology. Destroying a physical regime does nothing if the materialist thought remains. So, proving the existence of highly advanced spiritual extraterrestrials becomes the ultimate ideological weapon to free the human mind.
It is a completely wild, expansive way to read the morning news, isn't it? To wrap up this explainer, I want to leave you with this to ponder. How does viewing modern geopolitics and environmentalism through a cosmic, extraterrestrial lens fundamentally change our understanding of global events? Whether you see this text as literal truth, modern mythology, or a really complex political allegory, it absolutely forces us to question the philosophies driving the actions of nations today. Thanks for joining me to unpack this source material. Stay curious, keep analyzing, and I'll catch you in the next explainer.